Welcome back to the garage, guys. Today we're going to be looking at this welder that was sent to us by VEVOR. They've asked us to take a look at it and see what we think. It looks like we got some instructions here. Ground clamp, our MIG gun, some more packaging. And we got the unit itself. Okay, so we took a look at the instructions here, and it says this is an inverter welding machine, the MIG 145. So I assume that means it goes up to 145 amps. And reading through the instructions here, it does sound like this is supposed to self-adjust the wire feed. So you just set your amperage and your voltage, and then it's supposed to adjust the wire feed to best meet that. So you can see here there is no wire feed dial, just your voltage and your amps. Your voltage and your amps. So we're going to go ahead and plug this in here. Got to turn it on. Yeah, okay. So we got our amps here. I guess we'll go down to 30, all the way up to 145, and you can see it's adjusting the voltage here automatically. So I assume there's some type of voltage range that you're supposed to use. And yeah, I assume this means the 0 is the recommended setting, and you've got the low end and the high end for your amps. So we can see that change there. So another thing to note here is we looked through the instructions, and you can see here we have MIG, we have stick, and then we have TIG settings. But interesting enough, there's no gas port on the back of this machine anywhere to be found. So we can't really use MIG or TIG welding with this. So I'm not sure if that's an option or what exactly is going on there. So what we're going to be testing with is this 030 inner shield or flux core wire, this Lincoln Electric brand. So we're going to get it assembled. We got it powered off here. We're going to get it assembled with the gun and the ground clamp and feed the wire through. So we got the torch here. Just feed this in. There. Assume that goes there for the trigger to start the wire. Have the ground clamp. Oh, all that's in there securely. Feed the wire in. And if you could bring the camera a little closer, this wheel has two different sizes on it. So we have 1 millimeter and 0.8 millimeter wire, and we're using 0.8 millimeter, so we got to make sure it's set on that side. And we got our wire here. So we got the wire fed through here. We're going to turn the machine back on and feed it through all the way to the gun. Suppose it's still turning on. Yeah. Okay, so it's feeding it, yeah. So it's feeding it really slow at first, and now it's feeding it faster. There we go. So now that we got this all set up, we're gonna get some scrap pieces of weld together, or pieces of steel together, and try this thing out. So we got a couple different thicknesses of piece of metal or of metal here that we're going to test out, and here we have 16th inch metal, and the machine doesn't come with any recommended settings. So we did a quick Google search online and found that give or take you use 3/4 of an amp per 1,000th inch with flux core. So we've got 16th inch or 65 wall here. So we're going to get this set up to do a 90-degree weld, and we'll set the machine to 45 amps, and whatever the recommended volts that it comes out at, we're going to use that as well. So we're at 45. So we're at 45 amps, and the welder has it set up to 13.3 volts. And we're just going to do this 90-degree weld here. That's not good.
What?
It's not feeding wire. So we're going to give this a try at 45 amps and 13.3 volts. Okay, well, that's definitely not working with those settings. So we're going to give it some more amperage. We're going to go up to 65. And it brought the setting up to 14.7 volts. Okay, it's a little better, but still not enough. We'll go up to 90 amps. And that brought it up to 18.2 volts. Okay, so it's the wire feed speed is not nearly high enough right now. So not sure what to adjust here. Maybe 100 volts and 100 amps and 20 volts. Okay, so we are getting somewhere here. Brush that off and maybe go back over on this other side here. Maybe we'll go up a little higher. We'll go 110 and let's say 22.5 volts. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad with those settings. We have our weld here. It doesn't look too terrible, but it still needs a lot more wire feed. On the bottom here, it does actually look like we burned through. So we're going to leave the amps at 110 and drop the voltage down to 15 and see what we get. Just at first glance, that does seem to have made a difference. Seems to have made it maybe a little better. I think we lowered the voltage probably too much. So that was a 110 volts or 110 amps and 15 volts, and that seems to have done maybe a little bit better. I think we lowered the voltage too far. I guess it's just a trial and error thing until we get it set right. So we're going to go ahead and try some 1/8 inch, and if that works well, we're going to step it up to 1/4. So we were getting good penetration on that 1/16 inch. We'll leave the amps the same, but we'll turn the volts up a little bit because it wasn't burning the flux off all the way. Okay, so that weld looks okay, but we need a little bit more heat and amperage to step up the penetration a little bit. You see on the bottom here, it didn't really, we don't have any heat discoloring, so we're gonna turn the power up a little bit and try that again. Okay. So we got the machine turned up to 145 amps and 20 volts. We're going to see how much of a difference that makes. Okay, so that sounded a lot better right from the get-go. Okay, so that weld looks a lot better. It sounded a lot better. It looks like we got good penetration. You can see on the bottom here and on the side we're getting some good heat discoloration. We probably should have just started at the max amperage and worked our way back down from there. So we got some 1/4 inch here, and we got the machine turned up to 145 and 22.5, and we're gonna try this out. Okay, so that sounded really inconsistent. I think we might have been running too high of voltage for this setup. I think we probably drop it back down to where we were at, maybe 18 and 145 again. Okay, so that weld doesn't look too terrible. We are getting lots of heat transfer all the way through, so I think it does appear to be actually welding this 1/4 inch reasonably well. So we may even be able to go thicker if we lay down a thick enough bead. So we played around with the settings on the welder for a little while off camera, and we were able to dial this in a little bit and get some pretty good looking welds. You can see on this this tube notch here, it doesn't look too bad. We got good penetration on there, so that'll hold up. And then even on this this 90-degree fillet weld here too, seems to look okay. And then for those of you who've been following the channel for a little while, you'll know that this is a mini trike engine plate. We went ahead and welded that up on the bend seams, and they look fine. They have good penetration. These are definitely going to hold up. One thing to note is the splatter on the top. That is a side effect of using flux core wire, but all we got to do is just take a wire wheel and a grinder, and one pass, it'll come right off. So all in all, the welder seems to work pretty good. One thing to note is the auto adjust wire feed. If you've never used that before, we haven't. We weren't quite used to it. It does take some getting used to. So instead of adjusting your wire feed, you're going to have to adjust your amps. One thing to keep note though is the drive wheel inside of here. The motor can be overpowered if you tighten either your preload or your spool tension too far. So if you tighten that, the drive motor can be overpowered fairly easily. So we were able to weld up to 1/4 inch thick plates with this and seemed to handle it well. I mean, the welds seemed like they were strong and we got good penetration. The machine is listed on Amazon for currently, I think, $140. Is it worth it? Yeah, I think so. If you don't have a welder, this is definitely one to consider. One thing to remember is you're not going to be building any NHRA dragsters or anything like that with it. But for the hobbyist welder, it works well, and it works how you would expect it to be. You just got to it just takes getting used to. So with that, we'd like to thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, and be sure to like and subscribe.